Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in to the Dutch Mill. I appreciate it. Thank you. Here in the amazing Rochester, New York, and Monroe County. Stop number 14 of the FullSharpe. I've been sloganing the FullSharpe around. I got to hit all 62 counties, and I have done so for the past 4 years. So I keep going. I don't stop. I just keep going. You say, why do you keep going? Because I still care about this state tremendously. I just don't want to give up. I don't want to give up. Not yet. I know some of us have. Many of us have seen our family and our friends pack up and leave and go to Arizona or Florida or Tennessee or wherever they've gone. I know a lot of people have left the state, about 2 million in the last 11 years. But I think we got a shot here, right? We've lost His Majesty King Andrew Cuomo. The king is dead. However, we have gained a queen. So yes, we have gained a queen who may be a little bit lower on the horrible-ometer, but not by much, right? They're still pretty bad at what they're saying. And the problem that I have so much is how every single answer is always the same, right? What we're seeing in cities like Rochester, Syracuse, New York City even more, is things like violence. We're seeing things like unhappy people, policing problems, all kind of issues. So what happens in almost every case when a Democrat or Republican has this issue? Republicans yell back to blue, Democrats yell defund the police, nothing changes, right? Nothing changes. They yell each side. In fact, they don't want to fix anything because they fix something, then you can't just yell about it. And that's what they're doing, they're yelling about it. You see it still to this day. We look at our own governor. I'm sure she is over her head. I'm not mad at her for that. I'm not, to be forward with you. I'm trying to be good and I'm not mad. It's a huge job and I'm sure she struggles. I get it. But if you notice what she said, in every case, she has just said the answer is whatever I say. That has been her answer. Whatever I say. Do as I say. And you wonder why people are upset and worried. Because the elections have consequences idea isn't elections have consequences, so now we can be freer. It's elections have consequences, so now you'll do what I say. And then when the other guy or gal wins, you'll do what he or she says. And that's where she is right now. There's a problem with violence. So you know what their answers have been? Anybody know? Thank you, nothing. We talk about COVID. That's what we talk about. That's it. Not that COVID isn't a thing. It's clearly a thing. I get it. I get it. But that's all you talk about. But all the other problems happening. Is anybody here in Rochester worried about violence? Yeah, absolutely. Now let me ask you a crazy question. Why would there be so much violence? There's only one reason, guys. Only one. Black market. That's why you have so much violence. There's always a bad guy or a bad gal, right? There's always a bad guy, you know, bad Joey, whatever. He's a bad guy. I got it. Bad Joey's a bad guy. That bad guy might do something bad because he's a bad guy. But he can't get gangs together unless there are young men available for those gangs. So what do? We said, I know what we'll do. We'll lock everything down so that young men don't go to school and don't have jobs. And yes, and then they sit home. And Bad Joey's like, thank you very much. You just made sure I can fill my ranks in 5 seconds. Then we said, we're going to give them a bunch of cash to stay home and watch Netflix. And if they get a job, then they lose the cash. Well, they still want to work. So what do? They work in the black market. So they can still get their cash and still work. Well, Larry, is the black market that bad? I mean, the black market, you're a libertarian. You like the black market? No, I do like people making any type of transaction they want with themselves. Of course I do. But I like the idea of people being able to use cops and courts. That's not a bad idea. When things go wrong, when there's confusion, when people steal. But when you're black market, you can't. And we think of black market as only drugs. It is drugs. But it's also in all types of work now because you can't work unless you lose benefits, right? So now it's in everything. It's in lumber. It's in ammunition from the SAFE Act, right? It's in all types of things. So what happens if I say, look, I need you to do some work for me? And you go, Larry, I'd love to do work for you, but I can't because I'm losing my benefits. Okay, look, I'll just give you $300. Come do the work, I'll give you $300. You go, great. You do the work. I don't give you the money. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Can't call the cops. Can't sue me. Yeah. Yeah. He's coming to my house with that. Street justice. Thank you very much. Now that's a small issue, but what happens when I'm selling you lots of things? What happens when I'm selling you pounds and pounds of lumber? And now what's due is thousands of dollars. Well, that's worth me calling up Bad Joey and saying, get 2 of your guys over there and go beat up Kevin for my money. That's worth it. And that's happening throughout all the cities. It's happening everywhere. So how do you end the violence? I know, ban rifles. Because that'll do it. Right? We'll just ban rifles. That'll do it. Because you know what everyone's being shot, in the streets by? Rifles. Right? That's the thing. That'll work. We'll just ban rifles. No, we could ban the black market. We could literally end the black market by making more and more things legal. Now, I grew up in a city. I grew up in the Bronx. And that's how the young men went to gangs. Someone said, hey, you want to be a tough guy? Yeah, I do. Want some money? Yeah, I want money. Come with me. And all of a sudden now we got bigger, badder, tougher gangs. That's how it works. But imagine if you didn't have to do that. Imagine if you could just start your own business, work on your own. Imagine if everything wasn't illegal. And now when I sell my work or my labor and someone doesn't pay me, I can just call a cop or sue somebody. Larry, does that really happen? Yeah, it's called the liquor industry. Literally, it's called liquor industry, right? Liquor's a drug, alcohol's a drug, right? When my liquor store doesn't do well, I don't go over and firebomb the other guy's liquor store, right? If someone doesn't pay me, I just sue them. Or I call the cops, they rob my liquor store, right? That's what I do. There's no need for street justice. And no one's even talking about that. I bet most of you haven't heard me talk, have never even heard anybody tell you that. They just say more cops. That's their answer, more cops. Say again?
More cops, less guns.
Yes, more cops, less guns. Ban the guns and put more cops in. That's the only answer. Am I against cops? No, of course, my father was in law enforcement, not against cops. I just know violence upon violence doesn't work. What's my example? Chicago. Chicago is one of the most violent cities in this entire nation. Anybody know why? Effective FBI policing. I'm not joking. When you have a black market in almost every city, you tend to have 1 or 2 big gangs. That usually happens. And if you have 1 or 2 big gangs, you have 1 or 2 borders. And the only time you have battles is when there's a border clash, right? So there's hardly any violence because they want business to be done. So there aren't many clashes. But when the FBI and the police infiltrate, and FBI also creates its own crimes. So when they create their own crimes and they break everybody up and everybody's an informant, no one trusts anybody anymore. So instead of 2 gangs, there's 400 gangs. If there's 400 gangs, there's 400 borders. If there's 400 borders, there's 400 border clashes. You just increase violence. Literally, there is more violence in Chicago because of too much police. Instead, end the black market. End the black market, and there's no more violence. How do I know that? It's called ending prohibition. We saw it happen. Everything I talk about, I give you an example of. When we ended prohibition, the violence was cut by 2/3 within 2 years. Think about that. The same thing here. End the black market. No one's talking about that. I mean the black market in labor. I mean the black market in goods. I mean the black market in drugs too. End all the black markets, and you will find the violence go down. You'll find more people growing. End the war on drugs. We've seen this 1,000 times, right? The war on drugs is literally a war against black and brown entrepreneurship. Whatever what it is. We have to end these things. Who talks about it? Nobody. Republicans yell back to blue, Democrats yell back to police, nothing changes. We still die in the streets. Our cities are still violent, and we keep voting for the other. I'm asking you to start thinking differently. Tell your friends that. Think differently about your friends. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But not just that. We still have a legacy of people who have broken resumes, a legacy of people who have addiction problems, a legacy of people who've been in prison. We have a legacy of all this. So how do we change that? Most of those people are in cities. right? Most of them are in cities. There's the only opportunities. How do we fix that? How do we deal with that issue? We have to change. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, absolutely. The problem is, right, you get a point. End the stigma. This is personal for me. Those of you who know my own story. My mother was a felon, right? My mother had trouble getting a job. I hated it. The reason why I began my first business was not because I wanted to make money. It wasn't because I thought entrepreneurship was awesome. It's because I realized that if I started a business and made my mom 100% owner, that she'd never be a hostage again. Nobody could fire her if she was the only boss. So I started a trucking business. I gave my mom 100% of the ownership. We ran that business and she was the boss. Nobody could fire her because when she finally got a job, she was a hostage. She was scared. She couldn't say anything. She couldn't stand for herself. If she lost that job, there was no job for her. She would lie on a form and say she wasn't a felon. Every form she filled out, she'd lie and hope that no one would check. So if they checked, now she's a liar, they would fire her. She would hope. So you're right, it's a stigma. But here's what I'll say. What if we instead did two things? Number one, made licensing in New York instead credentialing. What does that mean? It means if you want to do a job and you want to get credentialed by the state, you may. You want to braid hair, you want to cut hair, you want to open a business, whatever the case may be, you can get credentialed by the state if you want to. No worries, do it. And if people care, you put it on out front, I'm credentialed by New York State. If your community cares, they go into your store. Awesome. Or you can just work. Just do your job uncredentialed. And as long as you are transparent and say, I'm not licensed by the state, I'm not credentialed by the state. If the community doesn't care, the community goes. When I was a kid in the Bronx, I saw the young girls using braid hair on the street to make money. So they made cash, entrepreneurship, right? I remember we had gypsy cabs when I was a kid in the 70s. In the 70s, there's no Uber, and cabs wouldn't come to my neighborhood. So you had gypsy cabs. They'd paint one side of the door a different color, right? So it would be a blue car with a red door. And when you, oh, okay, that's gypsy cab. We go there, I got to take this around. And very often, for some reason, he was from the Caribbean. I don't know why that was the truth, but that's what it was when I was a kid. He was just from the Caribbean. I don't know why, but that was the thing. I guess that was the thing for people. But that was very common, right? They were Haitian, Jamaican, something like that. Very common where I lived. And we also had people who were usually either Hispanic, they'd be either Dominican or Puerto Rican, and they'd be banging out to the dents in cars and rebuffing cars. Back then, we made cars of metal. Some of you remember that. We used to make cars of metal back in the day. Yes, they'd be banging out to that and you'd make money for it. None of that was licensed, but none of it was illegal. It was business that people would use, and they'd make money, get themselves out of poverty. We didn't care. We knew that Jose was good at what he did, so we brought a car to him, and he fixed it, and we were happy with it. No one was complaining. It was all good. We need to go back to that style of people being able to work on their own. So do you when you go to a store, you ask a guy, hey, I'm buying something from you. You have a criminal record? You don't do that. You have a bad resume? You don't do that. So that's how you get rid of stigma, by allowing a person to use their own skills, their own values to go do whatever they want to do, make their own money, make their own living. That's the key. Some people won't. Some people will get a job. Great. No wrong, get a job, get a job. Do what makes you happy in your life and how you do it. That's step one. But it's the second step. We have to incentivize small businesses to hire people who are former felons. We have to do that, right? Generally speaking, big business is not going to do it. They have a big, all they have is a big process, they check boxes, and that's what they bring you. But imagine if we had New York State, as an example. If you hired a felon, that you would get a break for 2 or 3 years, whatever we think is appropriate, on all of your payroll tax, maybe even your business income tax. Now, what I get all the time is, Larry, if you do it for 2 years, there are going to be companies that just don't pay payroll tax. They just hire felons and fire them after every 2 years. Good, you're training my felon force. Please do that. What a great business model. Please do that. That'd be amazing. I hope many of you do that. Take my felons, train them up, give them 2 years, give them a resume, and get them back in action. Otherwise, what they do, they go back to jail. And we spend $70 or $80 or $100,000 every year keeping them in jail or prison, and they're not paying any taxes. So I'm happy if that happens. I hope a bunch of people do that. Hope there's companies that only hire felons. That'd be awesome. What a great model that would be. I would hope that happens. I want us, is that me? It's okay, no, I'm happy. You're watching me, keep watching me, I love it. Yeah. So no, the things I'm telling you are actual ideas. You might say, Larry, why aren't the other guys saying these? Because they don't have to. We have given them no reason to come up with actual plans. What we have done as a nation, as a state, is just say, are you not the other guy? Great, I will vote for you. That's what we've done. Getting a libertarian into this fray, getting the third party into this fray, means you have to have policy. Even if you hate my policy, you don't like them. Larry, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. Okay, great. You got to talk about policy now, don't you? You got to talk about an answer now. Because my response is, wonderful, what's your answer? And their answer is, we're going to support the felons and help the felons. How? By supporting them and helping them. How? By helping them and supporting them. Great, how? Well, if you're a Republican, you go, we're going to invest. And if you're a Democrat, you go, we're going to fund. What does that mean? More taxes, more fees. What you will find with all of my policies is I follow 4 important rules. Any policy you've ever seen from me, and I have lots of policies. Number 1, no new taxes, fines, or fees. None. Never seen it. Never seen it. But Larry, you got to cut. Let me just have no new. Stop fighting me. Let me have no new. Let's go there. No new. Number 1. Number 2, no force. No force. Yes. Even with my plan I just said for hiring felons, am I going to mandate that every company has to have 3 felons? No. Am I going to mandate that 4 out of every 10 companies in any given city must have? No. I'm going to say, here's a benefit. If you like that benefit, please do the thing. If you don't like the benefit, don't do the thing. That's it. I hope I make the benefit good enough for you to choose the thing. No force, no coercion. Number 2. Number 3, whenever it comes to helping out people, I always focus on 2 types of people: the working poor and the middle class. I always focus on those 2. Why, Larry? Why would you focus on those 2? Because the wealthy don't need me. Number 1, they got it already. They're going to be good no matter what we do. They're good, right? But who actually helps the very poor? The working class. Yes, the middle class and the working poor. They're the ones who actually donate the most. They're the ones who show up at the soup kitchens. They're the ones who hire the people who need the most help. You focus on making those 2 stronger, we will by default help the very poor. Plus, the government, generally speaking, makes sure the very poor don't die. That's their only thing they do decently well. Right? Okay, you won't die. You'll never move up, but you won't die. So you can survive while the working poor and the middle class begin to grow, and then they'll help everyone else. 4, whenever I deal with corporations, I always focus on supporting the entrepreneur class over the corporate class. Because the corporate class is always about the big picture. They don't care. They're not worried. They don't care at all. But the entrepreneur class does care. The entrepreneur class comes from a specific town. They come from an area and they care. They also are the ones who make sure we move up and down our social status. They're also the ones who help out the working poor, and they're the ones who donate the most and help out the actual poor. So if we start supporting the entrepreneur class, the working poor and the middle class, we don't have force, no new taxes, no new fines and fees. Oh my God, imagine what our government would be like. Imagine what our government would be like. Imagine what our policies would be like. Imagine how we could go back to what we should be doing, which is having community be stronger than government. Right now, government is far stronger than community. It's not even close. We saw it last year in New York State. The vast majority of New York City residents, New York State residents, woke up in the morning, turned on their phone or their computer or their tablet or TV to see if the government would allow them to go to work. And basically nothing about it. Went, okay. And then if you live in a city like New York or maybe Rochester too, but no, New York City we did it, at 7 o'clock we come outside and clap. Remember that? Yeah. Yay, our jailers. Thank you for jailing us. That's some real Stockholm Syndrome stuff right there. Right? That is real Stockholm Syndrome. We literally clapped. We allowed our government to decide who was essential and who wasn't essential. We allowed it and didn't stop it. He said, that's okay. That shows how weak our community is. And here's the worst part. Now, what's happening right now in New York State, there are essential workers, medical personnel, who sat in the front line for a year and a half, actually on the front lines, right? Watching people die, trying to save people, catching COVID, blocking themselves from COVID, all kind of stuff. For a year and a half, they were there doing it. And while they were doing that, a bunch of us were at home watching Netflix and getting paid, right? A bunch of us were, not everybody, but a bunch of us were doing that. We were at home getting paid to hang out. They were working, getting hammered. And the government said, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. Now that all those cool benefits are leaving, because we were also getting first Trump bucks, then Biden bucks. Remember that? We were getting the extra Trump bucks and the extra Biden bucks on top of the money we were getting while they were working, not getting any of that. Now all the Biden bucks just dried up, right? Now they're going, oh, by the way, if you're not vaccinated, you're fired. So you worked your butt off for a year and a half, literally watching your friends and family die, literally on the front lines of COVID, working when other people didn't, and now your reward is you're fired. And you get no benefits. That's your reward. And in New York State, we are proud of that. Have you seen us? Have you seen the government? We're proud of this. See, yeah, it's pride, yeah. We're worried about people being vaccinated who have already been in the front line of COVID for a year and a half, and we didn't care if they were vaccinated for a year and a half, we didn't care. Now we care, and the answer is fire them. Man, feels like a vet, doesn't it? Yeah, feels like veterans. Threw us into the fight for 20 years, and then when we're out of the fight, good luck. You commit suicide? Oh well. Somehow we still trust this government. Why? I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. People don't change because things are bad. We don't. We just stay in a bad situation. It's called learned helplessness. It's actually a thing. We just stay. People change when things are bad and we see hope. Those two things must be true. Things must be bad and we see hope. We are the hope.
There we go.
There we go. I love it. I love that. There we go. I love it. Yeah. The liberty movement is the hope. The Libertarian Party is the hope that's required. If people see it, they will support us and we'll move forward. Guys, thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'm happy to take a couple of questions and or comments about what's going on and how we're working and what the future looks like. Any questions or comments at all? I'm happy to take any. Please go ahead.
Well, let's just, last time you ran, you said, oh,
Yep.
our base here is, good.
Yep.
And I thought last time, you said, in the downstate, New York City area.
Yep. Let me cover all the things you just mentioned, right? And for those of you who may be watching or still watching, he asked the question about we broke a hole, right? And then are we going to keep going through it? And then we broke a hole heavily in upstate, particularly Western New York, right? Particularly in Western New York. There are parts of Western New York where I got like 8-9% of the vote actually. So it was yeah. So it was some good areas up here. But what about New York City? Let me cover both of those. Yes, I broke a hole. I did. And then New York State said, well, we're going to cover that hole right back up. And they covered it right back up. If you notice, they for those you don't know, after I ran in 2018, I covered the state again in 2019. And we had 103 victories in 2019. We had 103 libertarians elected. Most of those were fusion vote candidates, right? They were both libertarian and something else. About 7, if I remember right, 7 or 8 were only libertarians, right? The others were some kind of fusion, Republican libertarian, Democrat libertarian, so and so like that kind of. So we had a couple who were like all three. It's crazy, but we had a bunch, right? About 7 were actually straight libertarians. The rest were of some combo. And after that happened, if you notice, right after that, they took away our ballot access. Yeah, stole it right back. Now we have none, right? I agree. So what? Yeah, I broke a hole, but I got to break it again. I got to do it again, right? But this time we got to make it so big they can't close it, right? That's the issue. We got to go through again so much they just can't close. It's got to be a big one. You brought up downstate. You're right. My worst county I did in 2018 was the Bronx, the county I grew up in. Yes, that was the worst county. You are correct. I did not do a good job of dealing with downstate last time. I did not do a good job of talking to the left in general last time. I didn't. You're right. It's correct. The issue is I saw my error, I see my error, and I'm already changing that. You are correct. It's an error that I made. The advantage I have, and why I love so many libertarians about running and then leaving, is you run for office as a libertarian, then learn all the lessons, but get so discouraged you leave. Well, now none of us learn the lessons. Well, I ran, I lost, I'm still here. Yes, I'm still here. So you are correct. I made errors I made many errors. I'll be very focused. I made a lot of errors in that run. I mean, it was a great run. We raised $500,000. We did the best we'd ever done in any libertarian in New York State. Great successes compared to libertarians, and I still made lots of errors. Right? I began running my campaign like a business. Those of you who've run a campaign before, that's a bad idea. It's a passion project. It's not a business. Right? I didn't know any better. So I make that change. Not just that. I was going where it was easy to go to. And in a state like New York, which is a very blue state, well, red people are open to here. If I was in Oklahoma, a red state, blue people are open to here. Whoever's not in charge is more open to hear us because we're the rebels, right? So it was easier to talk to the right. So I did, because it was easier. I did not spend enough time talking to the left. It's true. And New York City is full. New York City is 6-1 Democrat to Republican. 6-1. We have to get Democrats to vote for us if we're going to win. You're totally correct. We need the left to talk to us if we're going to win. I've spent the last several months, because you've been paying attention to me, talking heavily to the left to understand what they want, what they care about, and to give you a specific policy that some of the far left people want. Some of you may know that many people on the far left, particularly those who are more socialist, I've actually gone to DSA, Democratic Socialists of America events. That's how dedicated I am to what you just said. I've already gone there. And what many of them want is they want a democratization of the workforce. They want workers to own companies. In their world, they would have the government nationalize all the banks, take all the banks, and force people to only get money when the government says so, and every company is in worker-owned co-op. I'm not prepared to go there, obviously. But that's what they want. So I have to compromise with them. Imagine if we had a policy. Yes, I'm doing policy again. Imagine if we had a policy. 3-part policy. Policy number 1. That is, within any county, it is much easier for you to have a credit union that is only within a county. What is a credit union? A co-op bank. That's what it is. So you allow a county to have a local co-op bank very easily. And the state will support that in many ways, rulings, allowing them. And of course, you don't have to worry about FDIC, no interstate issues. You can start your own co-op bank a whole lot easier. Part 1. That makes some people happier, supports legalization, that's awesome. Not enough, that's the first piece. The second piece, when someone gets fired, someone gets laid off, they get unemployment. Generally speaking, the person gets about $13,000 over the course of 6 months. It's about that, depending on how much money you made, or the case may be. What if you were able, within one county, to get at least 20 people together who've been laid off or fired? I'll give you all your money up front. I got to give it to you anyway. I'll give it to you up front. Give about $250,000 or more. With that, the state will back a loan for your credit union. So they can give you another $500,000 or more. You now have $500,000 to start a business as long as it's a co-op. If you make it a co-op, start a business. Know what I just did? I've encouraged people who want to have worker ownership. I've encouraged people who want to have co-ops. If you don't like co-ops, don't do it. It's not required. There's no force. But if you like us, and there's no extra money, I'm paying you anyway. I'll just pay you up front. Start your business. You got a local co-op, means it's local. I've encouraged localization. I've encouraged you staying in your county. I've encouraged you staying in New York State and not moving away. Encouragement to do that. And there is no, absolutely no, there is no Democrat or Republican talking about that at all. Democrats don't talk about that. You know how the far left is mad at Biden. It's not left enough. Well, I'll give you left answers, just voluntarily. I'll allow you to be as left as you want. I say all the time, you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want to be. Just don't force your views on others. That's it. And I'll support you. Yes? You want to start a commune? You want to start a commune? You want to start a worker co-op? I am with you. I will get behind you. Not just that, I'll talk about it. I will use the bully pulpit and tell you how awesome it is for you to have a co-op. Amen. Let's do it. Let's do it. Absolutely. So I will support the left in many ways. I'm happy to. Not just that. I want to support real parole reform. Real parole reform. What New York State did with bail reform was embarrassing.
Yes.
It was embarrassing. I'm for bail reform. Bail reform should exist. Our way? Oh my God, no. Right? We did not do a good job of it all. Bail reform should be about should focus on one important thing. Giving the first-time offender a fair and second chance. That's what it should be about. It should be focused on you have someone who's been arrested 3 times, convicted twice. Why are we being nice to that person? I'm being forward. You've shown who you are. You got arrested once, wrong place, wrong time. Go home, man. Go home. Why are you being punished because you're poor? And that's not what this bail reform has been about. It's what it should be about. And parole reform, the same thing. We have rules on parole. Some of you may not know this. If you get arrested and you go out on parole, you can't be around other felons. They just sent you home where you got in trouble. Home is full of felons. So you can't go back to your family that you need most to support yourself for a second chance at life. Parole reform should be about second chances. Something we've forgotten in this country. This country was built on second chances. The people who came to our country initially, they weren't the first sons or the second sons. They were the third and fourth sons. The first sons, they had all the land. The second sons came. People on a second chance. Prisoners came here. People who were poor came here. They came here for a second chance at life. We've forgotten that. Parole reform should be about second chances, and so should bail reform. You should be punished for what you're poor. We can find other ways of keeping people in check. I mean, think about this. You get arrested for something. You're not a flight risk, meaning that you're here, you have a job here. You tell me you can't put an ankle bracelet on you and go back home? That's not a realistic thing. I have to charge you $5,000 a bail, which you can't afford. So now you sit in Rikers Island in New York City, the most violent jail in the entire country. You sit there for 3 years because you can't afford $5,000? Or put an ankle bracelet on you, go home, go back to work, go get a lawyer, defend yourself, whatever the case may be. We could do this. Those are left-leaning issues. We can talk to the left. We absolutely can. We didn't do a very good job of it last time. We'll do better this time. Did I answer your question? Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Go ahead, please.
So as a small business owner, has survived COVID.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. Yes.
Employees that want to work.
Yes.
So I don't know. Last year, we normally have a Christmas party for our staff.
Yep.
Couldn't do it. So
Very tough, I know.
based on everybody that their time here gave them a bonus. Really couldn't afford it.
Yep.
These people are who helped us get through.
I have to be very clear on what most people don't see. Most people think of business owners as corporatists. They do. That's how most people think of business owners as corporate, and it's absolutely not true. For those of you who've never run a small business, or those who run a small business, the amount of time small business owners don't take a salary when their staff does is embarrassingly high.
Been there, done that.
Thank you. So has everyone. So have I. When the crash hit my business in 2009, it hit me hard. I had 2 employees. For many months, I took no salary. I went into debt, and my employees got paid. I wasn't getting paid when they were, right? Because I thought I could hold out. I couldn't. The crash destroyed me. But I thought I could hold out, and I tried my best to hold out. I'd eventually let them go. But they got paid till the last day. I paid my employees. And most entrepreneurs who start a small business know that feeling where your employees make more than you do. That happens all the time.
You work more hours.
And you work more hours. Absolutely. That's why I would say you have to support the entrepreneur class. You have to support the entrepreneur class. The corporate class gets huge salaries and huge bonuses, win, lose, or draw. It doesn't matter what happens. They get big dollars, win, lose, or draw. I know half of my clients. So they think it doesn't matter what happens. What I'm saying is we support the entrepreneur class, and in every way, shape, or form. One thing we can do that will help the entrepreneur class right away. As I mentioned already, the idea of hiring felons and lowering tax burdens, not a bad idea. That's one thing. There's another thing we can do. New York State's the only state in the union that has its own separate insurance board. Every other state just uses federal guidelines. Why does that matter? Why? Because that means our insurance rates are higher. That means our insurance inspections are worse. That means the punishment is worse in New York State. New York State's one of only like 6 or 7 states where you have to get workers' comp, not just for on the job, but for off the job. Yes, so you had to pay twice. So I understand, look, if you're an employer and I tell you, come, you're working for me, go chop a tree down, you get hurt, I get it. I told you to go chop a tree down. Workers' comp, makes sense. You decide to chop your own tree down in your house, I gotta pay for that? New York State, yeah. Yeah. That should change. Email, that should change. We make shifts like that and begin to support entrepreneurs in that regard. Used to be able to hire a whole lot easier, right? But I'll give you something else. What if we were able to change how we actually fund our education to the point where there's no more school tax? Yeah. Our Constitution says we have to pay. It is in New York State, education is a right in New York State, and that means that the state has to pay for grades 1 through 12 in our Constitution. So, but we don't. Doesn't say we have to pay through property tax. What if you pay instead directly through the state? The state pays directly. If the state pays directly, what's the use for school tax locally? No need. That will cut almost everybody's property tax by about half. You cut property tax by half, you just either stabilized or lower rents everywhere. Everyone renting gets either a break or stabilizes. Every actual homeowner gets a break on their property tax. Every commercial person who owns commercial, all the tax goes down. All the tax goes down, which means people who think about leaving New York State might actually stay. People who want to retire in New York State might actually stay here and retire instead of leaving. They might actually stay. But how do you pay for that, right? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, that sounds great, Larry. How do you pay for that? There's a couple of ways you can pay for that. Option number one, you can create a coin, a currency within New York State. It is legal to create a currency within a state. You can't create one that goes across borders. That's against the law. The government will get mad at you. That's counterfeiting. No good. Certain states already have it. I think Utah has their own currency. So it's like Colorado, South Dakota. Some states actually have their own currency. So you create your currency either backed upon gold or cryptocurrency. I'm not sure which one makes the most sense yet. I'm getting my policy team back to the next week to figure that one out. But one of those two, you can borrow the gold and pay against it. The problem is in New York State, there's a lot in New York State, despite there's no gold mines in New York State. If you find gold in New York State, it's owned by New York State. Yes. So that's kind of how that works. So you mine that gold, think you will take that. All righty, it's mine now. So we could do it based upon either gold. Again, it's okay because New York State would own the gold, could back the currency or cryptocurrency. If you create that internal market, then that's how the internal market would work. The finance community would get behind us because the finance community could transfer that into dollars for a small fee. And boy, do banks love small fees. They love transaction fees. So that in theory could make that work. If that happens, that burden comes off of us. And now we basically create our own cash. We have our own money going around and the property tax goes away. That would help all small businesses and also other taxpayers. If we keep moving on from that, if we make that happen, then we create a fund, maybe through either nuclear energy, which is one option, or renting out or leasing out the over 4 million square miles we have of state property. We can create a fund. The fund that we can create can pay for our Medicaid, Medicare. That is the other huge chunk that's in our counties. Two big chunks, right? Education, Medicaid, Medicare. All of a sudden we pay for that. If those two things happen, we can then do two more things. One, eliminate the state income tax. The state income tax can go away within 4 years. Maybe 6, but probably within 4 years. We can end the state income tax. The state income tax is only about $50 to $60 billion. Education is over 70. Medicaid is over 70. Medicaid, Medicare is over 70. So once we got rid of those two, we'd have space to lower our budget from $215 billion to about $80 to $90 billion, which means we wouldn't need our state income tax anymore. We can get rid of state income tax. You get rid of state income tax, all of a sudden every employer is just giving every employee a raise without spending extra money, because that tax doesn't come out of their check. So everyone just gets a raise. So everyone gets a raise, everyone's taxes go down, and we still get the same services that we want. So we still get services, and the budget can go down. It can be done. I'd like to go one step further if we could. And that would be, once you hit 65, no more property tax. That's what I'd like to do. I'm not sure we can do that. Some states are going to do that. I may want to, because I want people to retire in New York State. Why? We're paying them pensions, tons of pensions. We're spending those pensions, and they're spending those dollars in Florida and Arizona. I want you to take your pension and spend it in my state. Yes. I want you to spend your pension in my state. I'm going to put that money back into our economy, and we're not doing it right now. Right now, we're just giving money to Florida. New York State's giving money to Arizona. How about we give it to ourselves? I would like that more. So we could do all those things. I hope that answered the question. You took off. I hope that answered the question. Yes, you had something? Go ahead. Say again, 3, 2, you said. Yep.
And the new COVID mandate.
Yep.
How are you feeling about forcing that upon? My kids already go to private.
Yep.
So that's, but forcing all 12-year-olds at this point to get vaccines, I personally parents
Yep.
that are getting it. And it's, as a parent, it's my right to my child, but my child. So are you going to press the rest of your kids?
It's a great question.
Not enough research behind the vaccine to say whether it's going to cause growth issues.
Let me deal with all those things real fast. To be very full with this may sound callous, but I'm very forward. I'm not concerned whether the vaccine works or doesn't work, whether you trust it or not. That isn't my issue. It isn't. It isn't my issue. I don't go into every health food store and decide every supplement whether it works or doesn't work. I don't check every TV show whether the stuff they're selling you is good or bad. Why would I check all of those things? I don't check any of those things. I'm not anti-vax or anti-mask. I'm pro-consent. I want people to consent. Yes, you should consent. And the example I will give you, and I always give examples of things that actually exist. Health food stores and natural food stores right now across this country, in New York, all over the place. People go into these stores and they buy things all the time. The vast majority of these things at these stores are not FDA approved. The vast majority aren't. Some of them I'm sure work, some of them I'm sure are garbage, just because that's the way it works. I'm sure some are good and some probably don't work. That's my assumption. I don't know if it's true. I assume it's true. This is a case where people, parents, are putting these products into the bodies of their children. They're eating the food or taking the supplements. The people themselves are eating the foods, taking the supplements. Where are all the deaths? They don't exist. They don't exist. It's crazy what I'm going to tell you. The vast majority of parents don't want to kill their kids. I know. Crazy. I know. Nutty. They don't. Most parents, like the vast majority, do not want to kill their kids and will tend to do the best that they think for their children. Now, can a parent and will a parent make a mistake? Yes. Parents are humans, like everyone else. Will a mom or dad make a mistake and maybe hurt the child? Yes, it does happen. It does happen. But so will government. And if I have a choice of trusting a government bureaucrat or government or a parent, I will always trust the parent over the government. Always. Always. And not just that. If a parent makes a mistake, and parents will, they are humans. If they make a mistake and hurt their child, one child's hurt. That's terrible. Hopefully we can help that child. When government makes a mistake, millions are hurt. Yeah. Millions are hurt. Millions are hurt. Let's walk down the road that you mentioned. The vaccine's great, or the vaccine's mediocre, or the vaccine's bad. Either one of the three, whatever it might be. Let's say the vaccine's awesome. It's the savior. It's everything. It's awesome. Okay, great. When you force people to take it, do they really want to take it? No. So now when the next thing comes out, you're fighting them again. In fact, now they're defending it even more. Now they're fighting even harder. If the vaccines are that great, well, now you're stopping people from taking them. If they're mediocre, if they're just mediocre, why would you die on that hill? Why is it worth the violence and the pain if they're mediocre? If they're bad, how horrible are you? In either case, why would I want to force people? Does it make any sense? Regardless of how good or bad or whatever you might think of the vaccines, why would I want to force people? A libertarian mantra is, and I stand by it, good ideas don't require force.
Yes.
And I'll go even one step further. I tell this story often, I'll tell it again. Both of my parents passed away of cancer. Both of them did. My father passed away when he was younger, and he was all about quantity of life. He was like, cut me open, give me chemo, whatever it takes, I want to live. When my mother passed, she was older. I'd already had my first daughter. She was very close to her granddaughter, and she was on chemo, and she told the doctor, no. I want quality of life. I want to spend time with my granddaughter. That's what I want. Quality of life, spend time with my granddaughter. My mom was on chemo. This is before COVID, and she had to go out. She's taking my daughter out to a amusement park. The doctor says, if you go out to the amusement park, you might catch the flu and die. Your immune system's shot. You're on chemo. My mom said, her words, if I die spending my time with my granddaughter, I'm okay with that. So which one is right? Both. You own your own life. If in your world right now, quality is more important, awesome on you. If right now, quantity is more important, awesome on you. You own your own life. You should do what you feel is best to make your life happy. But Larry, these old people, they're going to die if they go outside. Maybe, but maybe they're okay with that. I don't know. I don't choose that. They do. They choose. Right? Well, they can just wait till next year. Maybe they think there won't be a next year. Maybe they think my time is now or I won't be around them. Maybe they believe that. And maybe they're right, maybe they're not. But again, I'll go back to it. Who am I to judge? I can judge my life. I got that one down. Right? That one I got down. That's what I'm going to judge. Nobody else. Right? Our governor said, remember, she said that God made the vaccine. Remember that? She said that. God made the vaccine. And that people don't know that God wants to take the vaccine. And some people aren't listening to the will of God. She said that. Imagine how someone has to believe that they actually know the will of God and can now force it upon you. And can force it upon you. Now you might say, maybe you like, I'm sure some people watching or listening, they are Democrats and they support Hope. I get it. Lots of Democrats in New York State, 3-1, Democrats, Republicans, lots of Democrats, which is a new like her. Okay, but what happens when a Republican wins and feels that he or she knows the will of God? You're going to feel that way then? No, now you're going to be unhappy. And my point is, I don't actually care if she actually does know the will of God. I actually don't care. Same point. If she wants to say her opinion, I'm okay with that too. I'm actually okay with her getting up and telling everybody, I think you should get the vaccine. You should all get it. You should all, and if you don't do it, it's a terrible idea. She can say that. No worries. She's the governor. She has the bully pulpit. Say your opinion. Please say it. Tell us every day if you want to. Do what Cuomo did every day of a press conference. Tell us about it. It's fine. No worries. But you just can't force us. That's where I draw the line. I draw the line on force. You want to tell me what you feel? Please go ahead. I'll turn you off if I don't like it. I won't watch you if I don't like it. I won't watch you. Opinion's fine. Force is not good enough. Hope I answered our question. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Real quick, building on the vaccine mandates, what's
Yes.
your strategic view on state nullification of federal vaccine mandates, like DeSantis, other governments have been implementing?
I don't think New York State has an actual answer on that. And actually, while I understand why DeSantis is fighting the way he's fighting, I'm actually not happy with the way he's doing it. Before with you. I don't like the idea of the government saying you can't have either. I get why he did it. He's doing it because he wants to come back to you must to which you can't. I don't even want you can't. I don't want the state government saying you can't do it. Right? I'm always going to look to a local area more than anything else. Let local people decide what they want to do in their own areas. I said I'm pro-consent. If you want to wear 4 masks while you're running a marathon, good luck. But okay, that's you. It's your life. You want to get vaccines and 4 boosters? Get them. All good. I'm not mad at you for doing what you think is right. If you think your kids should be vaccinated, please do it. Vaccinate your kids. Your kids, not mine. Do what you think is appropriate. So I don't like that DeSantis is saying no. I get why he's fighting, but saying you can't, in my view, is as bad as saying you must. Right? Neither of those are the right answer. Your life, your health, make the right decisions the way you want to make them. I'm okay with that. But Larry, other people might die. This is true. Other people might. That's true. The issue is, what kind of life do you want to have? And if you're that worried about you dying, maybe you are in a bad, I don't know who's watching, maybe you're in a bad spot. Maybe you're in that zone, that's the tough zone, over 70, and you have a pre-existing condition, or you're immune compromised, maybe you're in that world. If you're in that world, please take precautions. Please take precautions. But even if you don't want to, I'm not going to stop you. The example I'll give you is when COVID was raging and they were talking about people not going to churches and shutting down churches. Remember they were going to shut down churches in New York State? Yeah. Remember that? Yep. So what was my response? If you're over 70 and you have a pre-existing condition, I think you should not go to church. That's my opinion. I think you should go to church. But if you want to go, go. But if that's my opinion, please don't, right? And I have two people in my life who are both over 80, who both have pre-existing conditions, and who are both practicing Christians. And I asked them both to not go to church. But would I have taken them? Yes, I would have. I'm happy they chose to not go. Yes. I'm happy they chose to not go because I told them I love them. I didn't want them to go. I was worried about them. One's on chemotherapy, one's with really serious diabetes. And I was like, I don't want you to go. I'm scared. Please don't go. And they didn't. But if they had asked me to take them, I would have because they own their own life. And something else was going to sound kind of cheesy, but I'll say it anyway. We have a First Amendment. The First Amendment doesn't just allow freedom of speech. It also allows freedom of religion. Just both. And if you want to gamble or sacrifice for your faith, whether I agree or not, and in some cases I disagree, it's your right. It is your right. If you ask my opinion, I will tell you. You know me, I will tell you my opinion. I have no problem telling you my opinion, but I'm not going to force you. I think that's the most important piece. If we spent more time thinking that way and acting that way, we'd have a better state and better country. Did I answer your question? Awesome. Go ahead. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. We are rocking and rolling off to 2 more events today. Thank you.